So tonight I'm going to talk about the great wealth transfer that's happening. It's incredible what's happening in this time and place in history. It's so exciting. There's kind of two views. There's those people who think things are getting worse, and I can understand why. And there's other mindsets who go, this is such, is it the Great Reset or the Great Awakening right now? And I kind of look at it and go, this is the Great Awakening. This is an exciting time in history where generational wealth can happen as we're watching a wealth transfer actually occur. Before we start, we need to tell you up front, we're not a licensed financial planning, accounting or law firm. We're simply an education company who'll give you factual information. We do not give any general or specific advice around this big list of things. Can we see what it is? Any specific advice around finance, business, investing, options, trading, accounting, cryptocurrency, investing or trading, precious metals or anything like that. That's not what this presentation of course does. Please see a licensed financial planner, accountant, lawyer when it comes to any investment advice you need. We'll be talking about certain assets tonight. It's not a recommendation to buy this or anything like this. It's just this is what's going on in the market. All right. So this is a really important and okay, I run a church foundation as well. And so I often am looking at what does scripture say and what does it look at the markets? And I'm not going to be preaching it tonight, but this does influence my thinking. So have a look at this. This is the first suggestion of a wealth transfer. When you look at it, the benevolent man leaves an inheritance that endures to his children's children. So the baby boomer aspiration of I'm going to spend all the inheritance before I not give it to the kids, I don't agree with that. Because it says you've got to give it to not just your children, but your children's children. 2 generations, okay? So where are the wealth opportunities to influence 2 generations?
I'd better get working.
Better get working. Got some work to do. And we're going to be talking about that tonight, all right? And it's good news. It's not a burden, all right? But the wealth of the wicked is treasured up for the righteous. So if you want to find where wealth is, it's stored up by the wicked. It's treasured up for the righteous. Isn't that interesting? Who would dare say that some wicked entities control a lot of wealth these days?
Yep.
Is that fair to say? Fair observation? Okay, let's have a look at the next one. So this is where this concept comes from. And here's the mainstream media, CNN of all places, admitting there's a wealth transfer, how Trump's mega bill transfers wealth in the US. So if you want some mainstream media qualifications on this, there you go. There it is, okay? They're admitting it. And this was in 2025, May 24. All right, let's have a look at the next one. And so, this is really interesting. There's some fascinating stuff that's been happening just this week that I want to update you on. All right, what 2 cities have traditionally been the biggest financial centers of the world? Anyone want to take a guess?
Hong Kong, New York.
New York and where? Hong Kong, I'd say, is probably 3rd.
London town, because there's Big Ben.
London, there you go, gave it away. My wife gave it away. Big Ben, and those are the 2 big ones. Yes, and definitely Hong Kong. Singapore is certainly coming up in the ranks, but old money, London. Yeah. And then, of course the New York Stock Exchange, right? Big money there. And of course, the crazy thing about America, it is the biggest economy in the world. And this is why we look at it. Because when America sneezes, the world feels it. Get out the handkerchief, right? I don't look at a lot of what the Australian is. I do look at Australian because we live here. But Australian market is only about 1.6 GDP of the world's economy. So you've got to keep that in perspective, okay? I mean, think about this. California is the 4th or 5th biggest economy in the world. The California state alone, 4th or 5th. That's massive. But what I'm going to do tonight is show you where is the money moving to, because we're talking about a wealth transfer. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one. Look at this story here. Rush to stockpile gold in New York leads to London shortage. Ooh, okay. These 2 big money centres wait to withdraw billions. BOE rises sharply as fear of Trump tariffs drive shipments to the US. A surge in gold shipments to the US has led to a shortage of bullion in London as traders amass an 82 billion stockpile in New York over fears of Trump administration tariffs. This is from earlier this year, and this story was, they were worried about Trump's tariffs. Everybody heard about those? Okay, and they wanted to get the gold back in America in case he was going to tax it. So all this gold was sucked out of London, right? Because there was a big storage. Countries, nations put their gold in London. Okay, the city of London has been a big centre of finance. I know one of the directors of the biggest bullion. They're building a vault in Singapore at the moment. The biggest vault in the world is their aspiration. I know one of the directors there, and I spoke to him last year at this time, probably around August 2024, and he was telling me that he just got off talking to one of the central bankers, and because of the threats of war in the area, they wanted to move all the gold into Singapore. So Singapore is, I'm keeping my eye on Singapore. Just same time zone, closer to fly to here than it is to Sydney, right? It's pretty extraordinary.
And Singapore doesn't count gold as an asset, it's a commodity, so they can't confiscate it like they did in America.
They can't confiscate it like in America, and this is why a lot of investors like Singapore because of these kind of rules, okay? And there are concerns about moving gold out of Australia as well with the laws around that. Good point. But look at that, there's those two cities. UK faces gold shortages. This is on January 29 this year, as traders send $82 billion to New York in anticipation of Trump tariffs. London's facing a gold shortage after traders put out bullion from the vaults of the Bank of England, stockpiled them in New York amid fears that Donald Trump will slap fresh tariffs on the shiny commodity. The British newspaper said that traders were amassed an $82 billion stockpile in New York in recent weeks. The report, quoting people familiar with the matter, added the apparent rush to gold out from the UK had left them facing a 4 to 8 week delay in recovering their investment. People can't get their hands on gold because so much has been shipped to New York and the rest is stuck in the queue. One industry executive was quoted as saying liquidity in the London market has been diminished. The Bank of England declined to comment. Okay, what was happening too, the fascinating thing about this is you can't just move it from London straight to New York, because the measurement of gold is different in London than it is in New York, in America. So they would have to take it to Sweden to remalt it, to resmold it, right? And then set it off. Can you imagine how expensive that is? It's heavy. You've got to insure it. The security around it is crazy. And then you've got to smolt it all in the middle. I mean, the logistics is nuts. But that's how much gold they were moving. When you're talking billions like that, you'll pay for the insurance, right? It's part of the cost of doing business. Let's have a look at the next one. This is pretty recent. This is October 11 of this year. Gold price prediction 2026. This is a great little article. What factors will drive values? If we get to the next slide, looking at what's happening next year, the central bank is purchasing trends. It's been doing that for years. All the central banks have been buying gold, 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 gold. Anytime there's uncertainty in the markets, the banks love buying gold. China's been gobbling up our gold for years. Okay, Perth Mint is, I think, the second biggest mint in the world, right here in our backyard. And so it's a massive, massive industry. And of course, it gets most of its resources from the goldfields here in WA. So we're contributing to this quite significantly here in our own backyard. The central banks worldwide have significantly increased their gold reserves in recent years, a trend expected to continue through 2026. The institutional buying provides strong support for gold prices by creating consistent demand for large-scale purchases, reducing available supply in the open market, signaling confidence in gold as a reserve asset. Countries across Asia, the Middle East, and even parts of Europe have been diversifying away from traditional currency reserves and toward gold. This strategic shift represents a fundamental change in how central banks view the metal's role in their portfolios. There is a real undermining of the US dollar going on by the BRICS nations. How many of you are familiar with the BRICS nations? Yeah, it's made up of Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, the primary nations forming that. And then you've got a lot of partner nations that have come on board as well. And they're forming their own bank. And during the Biden era, right, there was a lot of uncertainty, because what happened, America shot itself in the foot by putting sanctions on Russia due to that conflict that happened in Ukraine. What did they do? They sanctioned Russia out, and all these nations woke up and said if they can do that to Russia, they could do it to us. It's almost like putting all the naughty kids in detention, right? And they talk to each other and go, let's do deals together. And this is kind of what's happened with the BRICS, okay? They're doing deals together, and you know what they did? They started trading oil in their own currencies. Now, you don't think that might be a big deal. You haven't been able to do that because of the arrangement that America had with Saudi Arabia on the petrodollar. In other words, you could not sell oil without using US dollars, okay? If you did, it didn't end well. Remember Gaddafi? Remember Saddam Hussein? They did that. Guess what? Saudi Arabia did not renew the petrodollar agreement it had in June last year, 2024. Okay? This is a big deal because these nations are trading oil. Now, why would America do this? Well, one, they were offering Saudi Arabia protection and defense protection. But America's agenda was that if you own and control a currency that everybody wants, what does that do to your currency? It gives you ultimate power economically and politically. And so this undermining by the BRICS nations has caused everybody going back to what we call real money. Gold and silver, precious metals. The banks, the central banks love gold. Okay? Traditionally, that's where the money goes. And this is why there's been so much demand over the last few years on owning gold. So that's where the money is going. Now here's the question I want to leave with you. It isn't what gold is doing, or what the central banks are doing, it's this. Where are you positioned while it happens? Because a transfer like this doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for anybody to feel ready. It just moves. And afterwards, some people are holding something and some people are holding nothing. I open with a principle tonight. The wealth of the wicked is stored up for the righteous. I believe that. But stored up for somebody means somebody has to be in a position to receive it. That's stewardship. That's understanding the times you're in. That's what Prepare to Prosper is built for. It's our course on how the financial system's actually changing and what an ordinary family can do to get ready, while there's still time to prepare rather than react. If that's you, come and take a look. blueskyfactory.com/prepare-to-prosper. And one last thing before you go. Blu Sky Factory is an education company. We're not licensed financial planners, accountants, or lawyers. Nothing you've heard tonight is advice for your situation. Investing and trading carry risk, including the risk of loss. Please see someone licensed for advice specific to you. God bless. Remember, do your life purpose.